describe it for everybody because just to let you know, last night the market opened at 66.30, and I said this market looks fairly decent. We're up here at 66.40, yeah, 66.40. I said, well, it looks like it's going to go higher from 66.40. So sure enough, it did go higher from 40 to I think it went to 52, 66.52, and then it sold off. It went down and made a new low on the day. E-mini did at 66.19, which is roughly 11 points below the open. I thought, wow. And it happened about 11 o'clock, 11:30 last night. And then it rallied again. And then we went higher. First target was the 75, 66.75, and then 85, and then 95, and then I finally put it in at 68, 67.20. No, 68.20. I put in at the on the money maker, and I said I had to change it 3 times during that reference bar 3 times. So we had some momentum going there the first 30 minutes. And I think the big part of it was NVIDIA. NVIDIA hit 180 yesterday, and today it got up to 187.85, currently trading 186. And the other one that was a big surprise, Apple, I want to tell you how it traded. It traded from where we got in yesterday, this is overnight, all the way down to 265.50. And then about 10 minutes prior to opening, it started coming up, 66, 67. And then it hit overdrive and went to 272.21. And we got filled on a trade we did yesterday. The lesson from yesterday from the live trading is, do you see how by spreading a trade because your market timing is off, you still make money? That's the way. If I could teach that to everybody, that you just spread it and then wait. If your timing's off, you got enough expiration time, you ought to make money. And so I saw a lot of people say, hey, Tom, I made money on the Apple trade yesterday from live trading. And I said, well, I did too, because we spreaded it, yesterday. And, we started out just legging it in, getting long, and then today was quite a day. But, all eyes on NVIDIA, going to 187.85. I'll remind people this stock was at 191 on Friday, and now with a low of 180 and a high of 191, we're currently trading 180. It is 185.77 right now, 185.77. But I think what this teaches us is always keep your head about yourself, and when you're doing that, be sure to remember that every trade's not going to win. You got to work on some trades to make them win. Okay. Any questions about what we covered yesterday? Because I think today is going to be really good, the education portion. So, one of the tools that we're going to talk about a little bit is MTI by DTI. I find that tool very handy in a market that's all over the board this way. We'll explain once we get to the live market. Hello, John Toole. Good to see you here. John and Buck, Vernon. Doc, we see you. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Hey, Peg. In my opinion, big announcement Saturday, November the 22nd, but don't forget to get signed up for that. We got quite a presentation. It's not going to be John Travolta on Saturday night. Y'all remember that? Saturday Night Live, right? Staying Alive or whatever. Anyway, but it's going to be Saturday night at 7. Try to be there. We got something going to be a breakthrough technology that we're going to introduce. Get signed up for that. And do not forget, on November 21st, I have invited Jeffrey Hirsch, that does the Stock Traders Almanac here. He's a longer term trader, but he uses these trends out of that book. And so try to be here Friday at 11. Those are things we need. Adam probably ought to put a slide in there to remind people about that. Anyway, here comes Saturday, and that's what we're going to do. All right, train and trade, and I heard Chuck really liked his voice today. He was all excited. This will make anybody get excited when you see what we just saw, right? Okay. DTItrader.com/TNT. This is my program that I reach out to you. It's really a research lab also, because I do a lot of stuff that's pertinent to the 24-hour market that I post in there. And Jonathan helps and Chuck helps. Got 3 people here trying to give you information that will help you. We've got some tools inside the train and trade that really helps. And especially, in a volatile market where you could sit there and see the tape. For example, if you'd been in the trade watching this morning, you would have definitely wanted to have the sunrise signal work in your favor, because it was a wake-up call for everybody, the sunrise signal. Anyway, get started on Talking Trade, and I think it'll definitely pay for itself. Now, today's focus, I want to take this concept because, sometimes you wonder, is your expectation too big for your pants? And by using Delta, and I'm going to stay with Delta to set your all bets off number, your trigger number, and targets with options. I like the Delta concept because you can really lay out a good trade using those 3, using Delta to set the triggers and the targets. Okay, so pay attention and let's learn Delta for setting when to get in and when to get out. Now, I call ABO all bets off where we're wrong, where you just got to say, man, this is a bad trade, I got to exit. Okay. And I will tell you that a lot of trades end up in this category. And so what you do, and the way to think about it, even though sometimes you have to take a loss, you can take that money that you salvage, don't let it go to the graveyard, option graveyard, where it's headed, and take that money and have a discount, maybe with the same strategy, a different expiration date. I showed people, we had a small class and we had a trade in there, and I showed one of the guys in the class had let a trade almost, deteriorate. And then what he did, I thought it was pretty good. What he did, he said, I only got 5 days left, and it was worth about 20 cents. I said, let me show you something. Take that 20 cents, buy you some extra time with that same dollar amount. Don't go over it. Let's go find an option. We did that, and sure enough, the extra time turned a big loser for him, 80% loser, into about a 20% winner. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about by the option graveyard, things that expire when you're long options? You can always take that money that's left and reinvest it in the same strategy, just having a different expiration date. The biggest killer for options when you're buying options is expiration date. And you always got to keep that in mind as you're trading, okay? Then our analysis says bullish, and we get long, a practical all bets off will be the prior day's low. And we'll go through a couple examples and show you what we mean on that. Now, looking at a Delta 50 option on Apple like we did yesterday, and then, hey, it wasn't working. What did we do? We just spreaded the trade, and then this morning we made money on it. Okay, let's just talk about that. Say the current price is 71.20, prior day low is 65.32, That's 5.88. If you multiply 5.88 times 50%, that trade has a risk factor of $2.94 would be where it would go down and take out the prior day's low. A 50 delta option would drop about $3 if Apple dropped from that price. And that's the way you know where to set alert on the stock to give you a warning. This is where MTI is really going to help you. And I'll show you in a practical example in a little bit. Okay? Does everyone understand the math on the Delta 50, computing your loss on a trade that you do based on all bets off number? Now you can move that loss up, especially when you go into a new category of a trade, meaning making new highs in the day you're in. You know, eventually after about 12 o'clock, you probably use the same day. Does everybody understand? Say the stock's up $3.50 a day, well, you sure don't want it to go down to the low of that day about halfway through the day, do you? So you probably raise it up and reduce your exposure from yesterday's low to the day's low on the second half of the day. That's another insight that you can use when you're trying to make money. Trigger prices, where we will win. Okay. Let's think about triggers, okay? If the market is surging in the first 30 minutes and we make a high and then the market goes into a sell, then now you've got a good trigger number to tell you if it goes back up to that high and takes it out, you've got a way to enter. And that could work for the first 30 minutes or the first hour. Let's just take I'll show you this when we go live, how to set current trigger numbers after the day. Say if you take Apple, the high price was 72.17, and we set triggers at 72.11 or 272.55. If Apple went above 272.55 from here, I'd be a buyer. Do you ever understand how that works? We let the market get us in the ballpark by what happened, and we take the sell-off that we got now to reformulate a trigger. You know, coming into the day, I had a trigger number for Apple. If you go look at the Magic 5 this morning, and you go pull it up and type in what the trigger was for Apple.
Let's see, Tom, trigger price for Apple. I'm talking trade. $268.55.
How about that trigger price? You get long at 268.55 and the stock goes to 272. That's a $4 money in your pocket trade. Now, if you had a Delta 50 option, you made $4 times 50 would be about $2. Folks, if you're not a member of my Talk and Trade, slap yourself upside the head. I do this every day. I give you these kind of opportunities when you learn the trigger, you know? And so these trigger numbers are very good in the morning for people to, you know, to look at and make some money if you get a chance, right? That's what we're trying to do, make money. And this is a way to make money when you have a trigger. Another way to use it, say you're sitting there and you're thinking about buying a stock, it's one of my 5, and it's below the trigger, okay? Then guess what? You don't take that. Say you read an article and you say, I'm gonna get long this stock and it's one of my 5, use my triggers, they're pretty good triggers. And 2 weeks expiration is good. The longer than that's better peg, but 2 weeks is fine for the Magic 5. Now, NVIDIA, Osborne was 87.80 184. In this case, the new trigger price would be 188.11. Did I set a trigger? I didn't put NVIDIA in the Magic 5 today because it's got earnings this afternoon. Yeah, I left it out because of that, okay? But if I hadn't put one in, I would have took yesterday's high as a trigger. And I think yesterday's high, Jonathan, I don't know what yesterday's high was, but whatever it was would have been my trigger today, okay? Does everyone understand the technique I use? I let the market establish for me these highs and lows and keep them pretty tight with the current market. That way I can stay with the trend. If it's going up, 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 I'm doing it. Now, setting targets with the roadmap predictor. I'm going to let Jonathan cover this section because this is a great feature inside the roadmap.
It is a fantastic feature. It takes the option pricing and uses that information to predict where the stocks can go, where the options are implying the stock can go. So here's Apple. Had a December 5th expiration on Apple with the predictor, and it's saying Apple can go to 279. 279. So if you recall, Apple was trading around 271 in our earlier slides. That's about an 8-point move in the stock, and a 50 delta option would move around $4. It would it move if it happened fast, it would move even more than $4. Give you an idea how much an option can move right there.
Yeah, and we used that, didn't we, last week to make some money on an iron condor that we sold at 280 call, didn't we?
We did. We did.
See how you use it in reverse? I set my strike price at 280.
Here's the example on NVIDIA. I had a December 19th expiration for this one. It's got a 204 target on NVIDIA by December 19th. Remember, they do have earnings, so it's going to be a little bit wider range implied there in the options. But that's an 8-point move up in the stock, and a 50 delta option would move, probably $1,000 on you if it happened quick. Any questions on the predictor?
What we're trying to do is to use techniques in conjunction with what we do with the roadmap software and MTI by DTI. Okay, now Jonathan, we're going to go live with MTI. I thought we were going to have a couple slides to illustrate, see what they're looking at. Now, MTI is something I created with Tom Deleger, and we did it over Easter weekend. It's probably one of the best things that was created during that year. And the reason I created it was I wanted people to have a simple way to decide to be long, short, or out. And people love it that use it appropriately. If you're looking at this right now, you get a lot of good information. Up at the top, notice it tells you that Apple for the year is up 8%. It also told us the year open was 249, which means y'all remember, I wasn't big on Apple first part of the year, but once it got above 250, I said, we can be long Apple. And look at it now, 250 to 272 this morning, $22, folks. This is how you use it. And then you look for the month, that 270.42 number we got above this morning took us positive. And then, of course, the week, we're positive on the week at 268. Get a lot of good information there, and it takes it down to the day, okay, into the expiration. Now, on the right-hand side, very simply, Apple, those two white lines, I say above the two white lines, you want to be long Apple. It also tells me at 267.21, I want to get short. So remember, we had a risk factor down at 265 coming in today. Y'all remember that? 265, I think, was the low, right, Jonathan? I think, if I remember. Okay. And so now, if you're in Apple, you'd say 267 is your risk factor, that bottom white line. And so if Apple's trading 269, you basically, if you bought a Delta 50 option, you roughly got about $1 risk in that trade. See how you do that real quick with MTI by DTI? You can set your stops and your targets pretty quick with MTI looking at the short term. Does that help you by showing this along this line of using Delta 50 and getting into a trade and knowing where you're wrong? That should open your eyes to how valuable this tool is. And there's a lot of other uses for it. In the case of MTI by DTI, we also have an intraday numbers factory, I call it. Y'all remember at Sawgrass when Tom did this over lunch? And Jonathan, explain what they're looking at here.
Yeah, the two columns to focus on are these far right columns. The left of the two is our daily scanner, and the right of our two is our intraday. So if we just flip back and forth between this, look at Apple top line. It has a blank on the daily for Apple and a long on the intraday for Apple. So a blank just means it's in between a buy signal and a sell signal. If I flip back to the charts, you can see I mentioned here Apple's getting close to a new buy signal. Once it gets above that top MTI line on the daily chart, the left chart, it will be in a new buy signal on a closing basis. And so if that were to happen above 271.05, this box here, this box here would go green. And it would tell you a number, 271.05. It'd say long above 271.05, and it'd be green. So if you think about that, all these down here that are green are in active buy signals from MTI by DTI. And this, I just pulled up the NASDAQ 100 on these, just a small portion of them. And so what that means is that you got Apple strong on the intraday, but on a longer term swing basis, it's got a little bit more work to do. What number makes it that way? Well, we go back over to the chart and we see above the top MTI line 271.05 on a closing basis. And we got a good trade there. We got a good trade there. The start of a new trade. All right. Any questions on that? MTI by DTI, the scanner's going to speed
You like that scanner. You like that scanner, don't you?
I do like the scanner, especially the daily. Especially the daily. But a great little technique you showed us there on the intraday charts, Tom, moving up that stop. Any questions?
We've got some great master classes inside the MTI by DTI that really makes it very valuable. And I wanted to highlight it because of the volatility. And why am I highlighting it? Well, the VIX right now is above 20, and that tells you very volatile market. You got to cut down your size if you trade, and you got to know where you're wrong. And that's the beautiful thing about MTI by DTI. Okay, so let's go look at the Seven Sisters, Jonathan, through MTI by DTI, and let's just take a look at it right now here at 11:30 as we get ready to start Genesis.
Okay, bringing that up here.
Now, what we're going to do is look at the E-mini. We're going to come away looking at the short term and try to figure out a little help with Genesis, okay? Because Genesis is so powerful, this time frame. Does everybody understand how powerful this time frame is after we've been spending about a week talking about it, about Genesis? Pretty valuable, isn't it? Well, now this is the other piece that we put together. He's got the E-mini up there. Notice the E-mini on a daily basis, the reason you see these kind of sell-offs, because that E-mini is way below the two white lines on the left. That tells you you're not putting long positions on the hold right now. Okay, that's the message. I wish it would flash up. Do not hold long positions. the whole, like E-mini, that's S&P 500, just as an example, the general trend. There's exceptions, obviously. But now let's look at D-mini. D-mini had quite a run today, didn't it? It got you long, come down to where it crossed the line right there. What price was it at?
Well, that was about 668 or 66.68.
Yeah, 68, and it went all the way up to 60, what was it, 68.05? What was the high?
67.08 was the high, yesterday's high.
Yeah, so it went right up there and stopped, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now what is it doing? It's coming down. And so what I would do, if Genesis, if you look at Genesis, you already get support at that lower white line. What number is that, Jonathan, on E-mini?
About 66.49.
Yeah, about 45.50 where it fell the first time last night. You're going to get some support there on the E-mini. Does everybody understand how to read MTI? Very simple to read when you're trying. I mean, it's so great. You can use this 24 hours. That's the other thing I like about it. Now go to the NASDAQ. Look at the NASDAQ because that seems to be the bell of the ball. Okay. Notice the NASDAQ compared to the SPY is a lot stronger. Daily's the same story, but on intraday, it's not even close to the low, is it? Which probably tells you, if you think about it, there's going to be some more buying stepping in at some point here. Genesis turns out positive. It's going to be a tradable positive, I think. Okay. That's on NASDAQ. Put the Dow in there, Dow futures, or put Diamond in there. Let's look at the Diamond. You know, Diamond's been in the news a lot lately, and it is really taking a hit today. The Dow is down 100 points, but it didn't rally as strong as the other two indexes, and it sold off a lot faster. All right, crude oil. You know, I'm a real bear on crude. What is crude telling me? Crude's telling me the daily's weak and the short term's even weaker. What does that tell you? That tells you that prices in crude are going to go lower. So if I was looking at that and I said, I need to fill up my tank, and I know they're just prices after Wednesday, I'm going to fill it up after Wednesday of the week for lower prices at the pump. That's crude oil. How about old gold? You know, gold, we've had a great couple of years on gold. Now, gold is pushing a real long here, right? But it's on the daily. But look at the short term on gold. If I wanted to buy gold, maybe a Delta 10 option on gold, I'd want to see gold. I'd set an alert. John, what's that high on the white line there?
41.11. 41.11.
Yeah, so if gold got to 41.11, alert would go off, and I'd go buy a Delta 10 just like that on gold. That's how I use MTI by DTI on gold. All right, silver. This is David's market. I say it's David's market because he is a former retired dentist. He loves silver. Done really good after attending in person, actually coming in for a 101. But David, okay, right now, he shouldn't be in silver on the short term because it's basically telling him stay out and wait. But he knows the price to re-enter. What's that, 51.78, something like that? Pretty good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, 51.78 over here on the right chart.
Here's a play I'm really interested in, ZB. Where's that? Got a buy signal. Where's the high of ZB today? Where's that? Over here on the right-hand side.
117.02.
Yeah, I'd set an alert there. If it gets above 170.02, they're going to push bonds up. Now, why would you think bonds would go up? Let's think of any reason. You got an unemployment number coming out tomorrow at 8:30. Maybe that's going to say the economy is weaker than the Fed thinks. And those odds on the CME tool, I don't know where they are right now. Somebody check that. We don't have to go there, but somebody post in there. Somebody post in there where the probabilities of a rate cut in December is. That's inside the roadmap. You just click links and it'll tell you. Will somebody here help us and let us know? 48, write that number down. 49%. See if that doesn't change tomorrow, okay? If you see that number increase, then you can maybe do a TLT trade. Let's look at TLT. Where's TLT? Yeah, see, TLT is already telling you that it's moving into a buy area, TLT. There you go. We'll be talking about that Saturday night. All right, that's TLT. Now let's go to Apple. Boy, Apple looks good. What's that high over on the daily, Jonathan? Needs to get above that white line. That top. Yeah.
271.05.
Yeah, 71.05 for Apple. Okay. All right. It will go above that if NVIDIA goes higher. All right, let's look at, I want to look at one more, then we'll go to NVIDIA, the MU. Well, this stock is cratering, but I'll tell you, I think this stock's got some push above what 245. You ought to set an alert there for me, Jonathan. 245. Looking at the daily. This is a volatile stock, but it's a lot of money here when it's moving. Okay. All right. So what you should have walked away with is how valuable this is for any market that you want to play. We'll take 5 picks and look at it and give you an analysis. Y'all name a stock you want us to look at on MTI, and I'll give you the analysis real quick. We'll call it the lightning round. Just type it in there. Jonathan will throw it in there, and I'll go and tell you. Google. I want to see Google. Yeah, that's a good one. Google's good on the day, good on the thing. This is a play that I would probably, because somebody requested that, I had in my notes check Google today and I didn't do it. You just reminded me on Google. All right. It's a buy. Okay. What else we got? Jonathan, you paying attention? Somebody's got to change that.
Yeah, Broadcom.
Okay, Broadcom. Look at Broadcom. Now the short term needs to get above that. What is that high over on the daily before it's like Google? What is that number? 362 area?
362.5.
Yep. That's Broadcom. Okay.
Tesla.
Tesla has to get above 450 to really go supersonic, but right now, short term, it looks pretty good. Okay.
I had 2 requests for Oxy.
Oxy. Huh.
Crude
I'd
related.
stay away from it personally.
Yeah, it's crude related, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd stay away from that one.
Let's do
one more before we go to NVIDIA. Save NVIDIA for last. I'm going to give you my take.
Well, there's AMD.
Looks bad. AMD looks bad.
All right, here's NVIDIA.
All right, so here's NVIDIA. In the short run, NVIDIA went up today to 187. I would put a trigger number at 187.55 on NVIDIA. And on the long term, you're going to run into resistance up there. I can't read it, Jonathan. The top line is where?
Got a 193 lower line, 198 top line.
Yeah, I would write down those two numbers, folks, for tonight's earnings, 93 to 98. If you see it get above 198, it's breaking out, but that'd be where they're going to sell it, between 93 and 98 if it goes up after good earnings. That's the beautiful thing about MTI by DTI. You can really do well. Would y'all like us, let me ask the question, would you like us to really focus on some of the other attributes this week on MTI by DTI? There's a lot of other things that we can't cover due to time, but this is some way everybody ought to have it. And so, Jonathan, let's go back to the slide presentation. Yeah, I think we'll throw it in live trading today also for everybody. All right, the market timing indicator. You got a couple of things. Well, I think you're going to play the tape, right?
Yeah, I got a tape to play Adam gave me.
All right, why don't we play the tape and I'll sit here and listen to it. But this is a pretty cool thing. And we're going to run a special today for people going through a bunch of slides here. Okay.
Well, looks like Adam gave me a little more slides than we wanted, but detachware.com/MTI is the link, and then we'll play the tape in just a second.
Okay, you got it, Jonathan. Let it play.